Hello, everyone. This is Shubhangi Sharma for News 18. Donald Trump's landslide victory in the US last week has sent shockwaves around the world. The Republicans have registered a historic win, taking the House, the Senate, the White House, and the popular vote. The American electorate's message is clear: the mandate belongs to Trump. This obviously makes for a stronger and more assertive White House, not just domestically, but on the world stage. And it brings us to the question: what does this mean for India? Joining me to discuss this burning question is a very important guest, Gautam Chikermane. He's the Vice President of Observer Research Foundation. He has very enlightening views on grand strategy, economy, and foreign policy. He's also the author of the book Reform Nation. Mr. Chikermane, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Delighted to be here. Namaste.
So let's dive right in. How do you read the mood in New Delhi after Trump's win?
I think it's a mixed mood. Apart from a change of characters, the broad policy of India, in my opinion, will be and should be the same, which is India first. Just as the policy of incoming president-elect Donald Trump is going to be America first. Let's make America great again. That's his rhetoric, and I think India's stance should be India first again. But at the same time, there will always be some ripple effect of a country where there is a spectacular change of leadership. And in my opinion, Trump is doing the right thing. He is going for America first. He is looking at reforming America from within. He is talking about reducing wars, particularly in Ukraine and in Israel. And he is talking about raising tariffs for countries that he believes are not in tune with an open trade. India, on that count, is likely to get impacted. According to him, India is a major tariff abuser. And although I haven't studied tariffs to the extent that I ought to, but yes, Indian tariffs are high. Even people in the know say so. The good thing is that India is already listening. And I think yesterday, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman ji had said that we are willing to negotiate tariffs, provided it doesn't impact too adversely our people. What she's talking about is that the livelihoods on the agricultural side, agricultural farmers, and the efficiency on the manufacturing side should not get affected too badly. So I think over the next 2 or 3 months, you're going to see some intense negotiations around tariffs. India will have to give some, America will take some, America will give some, India will take some, and that's how negotiations are. So I think, to me, in the immediate term, tariffs is going to be the point of contention. Other than that, I see, for instance, defense, strategic affairs, Quad, the Indian Ocean region, democracies, and the fact that there is friendship between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and President-elect Donald Trump. I think overall, it's going to be good for the world. It's going to be good for India. However, we need to see how this actually plays out.
Absolutely. So I must mention that our own minister, Dr. Jaishankar, couldn't help but quip that a lot of countries are nervous about America, but India is not one of them. So it just gives the sense that the Modi government...
That's typical of Dr. Jaishankar. These
it just gives the
spectacular
sense...
one-liners, the manner in which he's able to infuse a huge thought into a single line is just amazing.
Absolutely. We know him for those one-liners. Perfect tweet material from Dr. Jaishankar, as always. So it just gives the sense that the Modi government is eager to work with the new Trump administration, and it's ready to deal with Trump's tariff war. So I think there will be...
I also feel that they will be more in tune with India, because all this nonsense about virtue signaling, gender issues, and fake identity politics, etc., have gone on for too far and for too long. I think when I see what Trump is speaking, when I read what he said in his core equivalent of a manifesto, I find that he's talking common sense, and I think he's healing America, and in the process, he will heal the world as well. I think a lot of far left people in India who derive their strength, who derive their even their sentences and arguments from America are going to be rethinking who they are and what they are, in which direction they are going. They may continue to remain hostile to India, which is fine. It's a free country, it's a democracy. But I think the overall narrative that used to begin from American universities, get pollinated through American media, and taken up lock, stock, and barrel in Europe, and basically the West, and is thrown at us over the past 4 or 5 years. I think that may reduce a bit, given that the heads of the two largest democracies will be more in tune with one another.
Yeah, you've come straight to the more fun part, which is the fact that they lecture India on democracy, but they cannot digest it when their own democracy has paved the way for Trump. So the hypocrisy just keeps going on. I think they're still in denial. What do you think about
Since you
India?
mentioned, sorry to interrupt, but since you mentioned democracy, I think it's time for India to use the Chief Election Commissioner or the Election Commission as an institution of soft exports. And the first country of that should be exported to is the United States of America.
100%, because each state is following their own rules. Some of the states are not even using voter IDs. That type of story in India would create a lot of havoc in our nation. We can never even imagine going through a process of that sort. It's different in every state, so that's hard to wrap your head around.
There is another stream of thought. It just strikes me right now, is that America is deregulating itself under Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk. They have been tasked to remove to reduce expenditure and reduce regulation. I think that given that Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy have been tasked with reducing government expenditure, in America is going to reinvent the manner in which doing business is regulated in that country. I think they have gone too far in over-regulating themselves. That is Elon Musk's stance. And since he's in charge, he's at least going to give ideas about how to reduce that. In that process, when you make doing business easier in America, which is the hub of capitalism, you may see those gleanings come to India. Although India started much earlier. It started in 2023 with the Jan Vishwas Amendment Act, where it decriminalized 113 offenses while that get in the way of doing business. Jan Vishwas Part 2 is underway, and I believe and I strongly recommend that the government should speed up the ease of doing business in Jan Vishwas Part 2. Jan Vishwas 1 was just a framework. Jan Vishwas Part 2 should get into the nitty-gritty. There are more than 5,000 imprisonment clauses that are directly under the union government that they need to be rationalized. If America does it, and because it's Elon Musk, it's going to happen much faster than 1 year or 2 years. It could happen just in months. I think the "Let's make America great again" rhetoric will get translated into action, and you will be able to see if doing business in America gets easier. The FDI flows will return to America rather than emerging markets, although emerging markets, particularly India, remain strong as a market size as well as in cost efficiencies.
Absolutely. So there will be some areas where we will converge and work together when it comes to retuning the supply chains. But at the same time, there will be some areas where we will compete, especially with regards to, for example, the semiconductor industry and other, cutting edge technology and strategic industries that India might.
That competition is not going to be a head-on competition. I think it's going to be more of collaborative competition. And the fact that the United States is willing to share these sensitive technologies in India to make fabs in India, make them in India, maybe for the world, shows that how far the two countries have traveled towards each other strategically. So since you mentioned semiconductors, my sense is that semiconductor, defense, strategic technologies, drones, etc., will continue, and this would be good for both. There will be more of a collaboration than competition, and if there is competition, it will be collaborative competition.
Absolutely. So nothing that we cannot manage.
That's right.
How do you see the new cabinet appointed by Trump? His national security and foreign policy picks, they include Mike Waltz for NSA, Peter Hegseth as defense secretary, Marco Rubio, not confirmed yet, but quite likely to be Secretary of State. So India is going to be dealing quite closely with these three. What do you think about these
I think
selections?
firstly, all three are they are not anti-India, and which is a good start. Whether they are pro-India or not, I don't know. And why should they be pro-India? They should be pro-America. And wherever India and America can align themselves, I think it'll be great. That doesn't mean they're going to just run over India in case things don't align. There will be negotiations. India is ready to negotiate, and these are two friendly countries, almost partners in defense, strategy, economics, etc., including the huge diaspora and goodwill. So I don't see, any change that happens in the United States or in India is it's like two humongous ships. These are two very large democracies. For two, not large, not big, not enormous, or humongous ships to take any turn, it takes a lot of effort. So broadly, I feel the momentum that has been built over the past 10 or 15 years will continue. But those tactical changes that maybe on tariffs there'll be a problem, maybe on security there could be some issue here and there, etc. They will be very surface level. But to me, the broad picture, which is the India-America ties that have been continuing over the past decade and a half and been strengthening across ideologies, across presidents, across governments, will continue. So yeah, you mentioned the three names, and I don't think any of them is rabidly against India. But how they negotiate the American interest, keeping a partner's interest in mind, is how we will have to track these conversations over the next 4 years. But I don't see any major change.
All right. So, how do you think India-US defense ties will fare moving forward? This is arguably the strongest link between our governments. And under the Biden administration, India managed to secure technology transfer under the GE jet engine deal, for example. So we know how protective the US is of its IP. Do you think such a deal could pan out under the Trump era?
Yes, I do think so. Which I just mentioned it earlier, that it will be very difficult to undo the past, given that there are two large democracies. But more than that, I think Asia is the geography of growth. Among the fastest growing large markets are India, ASEAN, let's say, for instance, Thailand, Bangkok, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. So if the economic weight of growth is shifting towards the east, the strategic stakes and defense protections move eastward as well. It is because of this reason that the Indian Ocean region has become so important. It is because of this reason that the Indo-Pacific conversations have deepened. It is because of this reason that Quad is strengthening across governments and will continue to. So as far as defense goes, I don't see any change other than I think a stronger embrace between these two countries.
So then that just brings us to the big picture, the most important question, I think. The geopolitical arena is almost unrecognizable, in the last 4 years of the Biden administration. Compared to the way Trump left things in 2021, the Russia-Ukraine war, the revival of the NATO, the resurgence of BRICS. Things are very different today. In fact, even with India is on relatively better terms with China. So do you think Trump will manage to turn America's focus back to the Indo-Pacific? What will that mean for India? How is the world going to look? Just
I think
big picture.
already, even before he has taken charge, countries are beginning to sort of in a very crude way, I would say, is behave themselves. Qatar, for instance, has said that it no longer wants to be the negotiator between Israel and Hamas. There was a news that came, it turned out to be fake, that the Houthis are rethinking what they are up to in that geography. You mentioned China. I don't think China is backing out from our borders for any noble reasons of nobility or ethics or principles. I think it's backing out that so that India doesn't entirely get pushed into the US ambit. Having said that, I don't think it matters to India either way. India has retained its India first position. It will be friends. It wants to be friends with China, and it is a friend of USA. But the two are not mutually unless China misbehaves, or so we will continue to guard our interests. What may happen is that if Trump pushes for American oil to be or to be exported all over the world, then there could be small tensions with Russia. Although I don't see, I think India needs more oil than it can get. So we will continue to get oil from Russia as well as US. So we can increase our oil intake, oil purchases, energy purchases from the US without impacting our ties with Russia. So the wars over the next 4 years, in my opinion, will end. At least that's what Trump says, and he's been a very successful, and his track record speaks that he can negotiate very well. Let's hope that continues, and that'll be good for the world. Europe needs to worry because Trump had said in his last tenure that Europe needs to put that 2% of its GDP into defense for its own security. So Europe, the continent which is most vulnerable today is Europe. Europe was dependent on Russia for cheap gas, for America for security, and to China on China for markets. Today, the markets are receding with some sort of a decoupling or a de-risking that's happening. Russia is at war, so the oil is going away. America is saying that if you need my security, you got to pay for it. So I think Europe is a continent, needs to rethink what it is, where it wants to go, rather than India, which doesn't need like we are pretty strong. Our defense is pretty strong. And what we are looking forward to is growth. We are looking forward to removing poverty. We've already eradicated extreme poverty. Now we will eradicate the next level of, so $1.9 per day consumption poverty is almost over. It is over actually. And now we'll move it to $2.5, $5 poverty levels. So we are looking at growth. We are looking at prosperity. While Europe is looking at security, Europe is looking at low-cost energy.
And you mentioned, how we are buying a lot of oil from Russia, and Russia has, at this point, a trade surplus with India, a really big one. And then on the other hand, you have the United States that wants India to buy more from them. So I think there will be.
Not right now. At some point, Trump will want us to buy American oil. And I think India needs both American as well as Russian oil. And if there is some new country, new island that comes out of the Pacific Ocean with oil, we'll take that as well.
Absolutely. So there's one more question that I do have, and this is with regards to our neighborhood. So there were some tensions between India and the Biden administration over how to deal with Bangladesh. Before that, it was Afghanistan and even Myanmar on some counts. So will Trump, for the lack of a better word, behave in our vicinity?
I don't know. Trump has been very vocal in saying that there is the killings of Hindus in Bangladesh is not acceptable, etc. How he turns those words into action, we don't know. We still don't know. Is it even his problem, by the way? We don't know. But Trump has echoed what India has been saying. And at some point, Bangladesh will have to learn to behave itself. It needs to, unless it wants to go the Pakistan way, which is implode under its own weight of terror, of religious violence. Those are choices before the Bangladesh and its government. What can Trump do in that area? I'm not very certain. There are several conspiracy theories. They want to build a port there. They want to have a base there. They want to have a Christian island there, etc. I don't buy any of these. Because if the US was really that strong, how come Chinese ships are going there? So I'm not really sure whether there's a straight line answer to this. Bangladesh has gone off the kilter, and we don't know how it's going to return unless there are proper elections. And Bangladesh is a tragic story for Hindus, but it's equally a tragic story for Muslims as well. So I think Bangladesh needs to rethink what it is, where it's going, and how it's progressing there. Democracy needs to return as soon as possible.
All right. Thank you so much, Gautam Chikermane ji, for joining me on this really enlightening chat. Obviously, very enlightening points on the Trump administration and tariffs and how India is going to manage the new White House. Looking optimistic from the Indian side, but we will wait and watch how things pan out in the next few months. So thank you again, Chikermane ji. Thank you.
Namaste.